Despite the packed house, we're going to get started now. Welcome to tonight's parenting event. I recognize a lot of the faces here. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Daniel Drandoff. I am the Assistant Clinical Director here at My Extended Family and the Director of the Boys Division. Before I introduce tonight's speaker, I wanted to just say a few words about My Extended Family. Those of you that know about us will get to know a little bit more, and those of you that don't will maybe hear something you didn't know. A very, very special program and very dear to me. In last week's parsha, we just read a few days ago the pasuk V'asu li mikdash v'shachanti b'soicham. So it's a very interesting pasuk because loosely translated, the way a lot of people would translate it would be, build for me a mikdash, a sanctuary, and I'll dwell in it. Right? Which would seem to make sense. Build for me a mikdash, and I'll dwell in it. The problem is, however, as many Sfarim point out, that if that was in fact the literal translation and how it was meant to be taken, the pasuk would have said, "V'asu li mikdash v'shachanti b'soichai lashon yachid." I will dwell in it, but it doesn't say that. It says, "I will dwell in them b'soicham." So how do we understand this? Just on the simplest level. Build for me a mikdash. That's when God is telling us to build a Beis HaMikdash, and I'll dwell in them. So there are many answers to this question, and one of my personal favorites that I've seen in many of our Sfarim is that the sanctuary that God is referring to on a little bit of a deeper level is every single individual Jew, every single Yid in Klal Yisrael. That every single Jew is born, every Jewish child is born with the innate qualities and the innate capabilities to be a small Beis HaMikdash. Now, the question is, how do we build a Beis HaMikdash? So the specifics of that go way beyond the scope of this speech here. But suffice it to say that there are many parameters. How it's constructed, the dimensions of the Beis HaMikdash, who's allowed to go in, what vessels we bring in, when people that go in are allowed to go in, what they have to do before they enter. It's a whole to-do. It's not a simple thing. Building a child is no different. Building a small mikdash, v'shachanti b'soicham, I, God, will dwell in them, and all of those children, all the children of Klal Yisrael, is no different. It takes parents, it takes a community, it takes kohanim, leviim, Yisraelim, it takes everybody, because everybody's got to be involved to make a Beis HaMikdash work. I want to take the opportunity here to thank Rabbi and Rebbe Ziegler and commend them for their vision and what they've built here in My Extended Family. It's a place that takes up this mantle, that stands up for children who oftentimes are not afforded the same capabilities or the same opportunities that many other children have, simply by definition based on the situation. So Rabbi and Rebbe Ziegler, together with their vision, created My Extended Family to be a place where children can thrive, whether it's the weekly programs that we do for the boys, weekly programs for the girls, the mentoring that happens for each individual boy and each individual girl that takes place right here or in school for some, whether it's the Yom Tov programs, the Purim Seudah, Purim Mesiba, the Hanukkah program at the Jewish Children's Museum, and many, many, many other things that are done through My Extended Family for these children. The goal that we as an organization have is just this. V'asu li mikdash v'shachanti b'soicham. I'm gonna take every single Jewish child, and together with your help, the kohanim, the leviim, all the helpers that come along the way, parents being at the top, we're gonna infuse the children with ruchnius, and each one is gonna be fitting to take in the Shekhinah itself. The very Shekhinah itself will dwell in each child. And this is the vision of My Extended Family, and everything that we do is with that in mind, with that idea and that vision. So we have tonight, we're very fortunate to have with us Yitzi Horowitz, who's going to address us in a minute or two on the topic of parenting, raising children in a single parent home. And I'd like to take the opportunity also to thank our partners here tonight, Mask and Project Chai, for everything and being involved with us. And thank you all for coming, and I hope that we can give something to you tonight that you can take to be able to be the parents that we know all of you and all of us want to be. Thank you so much. Yitzi?
I'm looking around the room and I see a lot of faces well, now I see faces that I know. And I see this really, really beautiful, bright light. It's this phone dying, and I'm about to, well, you guys can't see it, but there's a video camera right here with a bright light. So if I squint a lot, forgive me. I guess it's not ironic that I'm standing up here to give a speech about parenting, and my mother just walked in the back. Maybe I can have a round of applause for my mother, who taught me everything I know about parenting. Rabbi Drandorf, of course, stole my my tartara for the night, but I'll get there. I also wanted to say a few thank yous. I remember when the Wieglers started here in Flatbush. I don't remember how many years ago it was, but I remember hearing about this mission of bringing spirituality, of bringing Hasidus, of bringing something that has been sorely lacking, not just in the Jewish community in New York, but certainly the Jewish community at large. And I don't know if the Wieglers, if you intended to end up where you are today in terms of my extended family, but certainly it's pretty cool. So Yasher Koyach to my extended family and the Wieglers, and tremendous continued Hatzlacha and everything. And also, of course, to the other sponsors, you know, when I got the flyer and I saw on the bottom and on the top all the different names. I don't see any flyers here, but I would have held it up. All the names of the different organizations that are sponsoring tonight's event. It kind of looked to me like a bunch of little seeds, if you think about it. All the organizations, Chai Lifeline, thank you. Chai Lifeline and Mask, Sister to Sister, Madrigos, my extended family, of course, some of the corporate sponsors. You know, I was sitting, a few weeks ago, I was sitting on a plane going to Eretz Yisrael next to a mashgiach from one of the well-known yeshivas, and he was talking to me about all the different crises that Klal Yisrael is going through, and this and that, and etc. And it was a 10-hour flight, and of course I'm sitting on the flight, and I'm wondering, like, you know, am I going to turn on a video? Am I not going to turn on a video? I'm sitting next to a mashgiach, and whatever, he's a well-known person, and I don't know, should I, shouldn't I? All the way at the end of the flight, I'm not going to tell you what I did. All the way at the end of the flight, he leaned over to me and he said to me, he goes, you know, we can complain and complain and complain. Lamaisa, he said, Lamaisa, the things that are going on in Klal Yisrael, the chesed that's going on in Klal Yisrael, the amount of yearning that's going on in Klal Yisrael, never before. It's impossible. Never before has there ever been such a thing. So when I think of the different organizations that are out there in Klal Yisrael, there are new ones that keep popping up. To a large degree because of all the tsaras that exist in the world. It's very, very beautiful. I hope it's not too cheesy if I can say that every single one of these organizations is like a little seed that Klal Yisrael cries into, and those tears grow into smiles and grow into Yeshuas, and it's a really, really big deal. But most importantly to me, you know, the fact that people came out tonight, right before Yontiv, right before Purim, on a weeknight, it's pretty cold, it's Brooklyn, parking stinks, and the amount of people that came out here, you know, Rabbi Yisrael Salanter was famously said that it's easier to learn all of Shas than it is to change one midah, to break one behavior, negative character trait, and the fact that people are coming out to try to learn something new, to me that's the biggest inspiration. So if we can give all of ourselves a round of applause, that would be to me a big deal. So I like I said to you, I was in Eretz Yisrael, and I had the privilege, I don't know how many people here know the community Nachlaot. Nachlaot is like a very, very old, I don't know if we can call it a yishuv, but certainly a neighborhood that existed for many, many years. And for Shal Shudas, I went to this place called Yeshivat Shlomo. Yeshivat Shlomo is like a little tiny kiruv yeshiva that's trying to perpetuate the prayers of Shlomo Kalbach. You know, Shlomo Kalbach said probably thousands and thousands of different little divrei Torah, usually in a very, very cute way. And there's a group of people now in Eretz Yisrael that are trying to really concretize his mission in life. And so this Rav Shalom Brut, who runs this yeshiva, is out there. He has a small little yeshiva that exists in his dining room. And every week, Shal Shudas time, he gets maybe 30 to 35 single American people that are living, they walk from all over Yerushalayim to come for Shal Shudas. And so when I was in Yerushalayim for Shabbos, I decided to walk over there. Somebody that's very inspirational. And whatever it was he was talking about love and peace and all the good stuff. And he said this story about his grandfather. And he says like this. He said, my grandfather was a tremendous Talmid Chacham. He used to give a shiur every day for more than 2 hours. He was a big goyen, and he used to give these shiur. And his wife, this Rav Shalom Brut's grandfather, his wife suddenly died. And Rav Shalom Brut was saying that his father at the time was 7 years old, and it was the day after Shiva when his father called him over and he said to him, listen, you 7-year-old son, you have two choices. Choice number one is, you learn how to exist on roughly a piece of bread every day, as well as not having any new clothes from now until the bar mitzvah, right, at 7. Or you can go out to work. It's your choice. I'm giving you the choice, whatever you want. But I'm telling you that this is my lifestyle. Your mother was the breadwinner. I can't afford to feed you, so it's your choice. So Rav Shalom Brut went on to explain what happened in his father's story. I don't remember exactly why he was talking about his father. But he tells over the story about obviously how the 7-year-old kid decided to go out to work. He wasn't going to choose to remain in Cheder. And it dawned on me, this story we're talking about took place less than 100 years ago. And what dawned on me is how rapidly the world has changed. Every parent in this room, if you stop for a minute and think of your child, a 7-year-old child, giving them a choice like that. Either you don't get any new clothes, no new shoes, no new suits, no new whatever, no new yarmulkes with a fancy new whatever it is that's out there. Until your bar mitzvah, and you get to live on maybe 2 pieces of bread a day, or you go out to work. I mean, think about that. It's a little bit insane. Nobody would dream of doing that today. But that was less than 100 years ago. And what existed less than 100 years ago existed for at least 1,000 years. Think of the awesome responsibility that a 7-year-old kid was given to make a choice like that. I mean, I can imagine some kids saying that they wouldn't want to stay in school. That's fine. But to have to go out to work in a shop somewhere. Think about what we might call the selfishness of a parent turning to a 7-year-old kid and saying, listen, I give a shiur 2 hours a day. It's your choice. You can do what you want. How focused parenting was at that time on the parent and not the child. And then, of course, the difference in terms of the lifestyle we live in today, which most of us don't live in a world of survival mode. Most of us are not living on a piece of bread a day. And even those that can't afford things, we have organizations. Think about the survival mode that this kid at 7 years old was introduced to. So there's no doubt that the world has changed. One of my favorite books on parenting was written by a woman named Jennifer Senior, a researcher. She has a book that just the title enough I thought was worth saying because it speaks volumes. Her book is called All Joy and No Fun: The Paradox of Modern Parenting. Right? And in there, she makes 2 points that to me are kind of like what I was thinking about by this Rabbi Brut. Number one is, parenting today is a verb, right? It's a word that's used to describe a set of behaviors, actions, attitudes, goals, disciplines, etc. Parenting is a verb. It never was like that. a parent was simply a word used to describe to somebody who had children. Today, you can go into any kind of self-help aisle and you can see bookstores worth of books on the verb parenting, how to parent. So number one, that's changed. That's something new. Number two, things used to be very, very parent-focused. Children were to be seen and not heard, or sometimes not even seen. And parents focused on doing the things that they needed to do, whatever it was, whether it was having a parnassa, working on themselves, having a social life, etc. Think about halachas. Most of the Torah, except for certain sugyas, most of the Torah focuses on the halachas of kibbud av v'em. Yes, of course, we have certain mitzvahs that the parents are supposed to do for their child, but for the most part, in our Torah, we don't really see much in terms of the halachas of parenting. We see much about the halachas of ways that children are supposed to focus on the parents, but not so much on the things that parents are supposed to do for their children. We'll talk about chinuch and Musar maybe in a few minutes. So now I want to kind of try to make this case that I'm aiming at with two research studies. I hate research, but to me these two things are, I'm not going to give you statistics, but these two research studies to me make things even profoundly more challenging. Number one, they've been able to demonstrate that parents that are more effective at parenting, right, at this verb parenting, parents that are more effective in parenting demonstrate an overall, general, happier disposition in life. So again, the better you are as a parent, the happier you are. The poorer you are as a parent, the poorer your level of happiness is. Now, there's many ways to look at this research and there's many ideas and things like that, but I just wanted to kind of take that bit of research for a minute. The second set of research that to me is fascinating, because this is something that they've been able to demonstrate pretty much across all of the Western world, which includes the United States, Europe, and any of the quote-unquote developed countries. People who are adults that don't have children tend to score a lot higher on tests that measure happiness. In other words, if you don't have children, you're happier in life. And if you do have children, you're less happy in life. And that is something that they've been able to replicate pretty much across cultures. Now, before you jump down my throat and say it's not the way the Torah, it's not this, it's not that, I'm just delivering to you the research. There was a report in the American Journal of Sociology. Let's make things even a little bit harder. This was a researcher out of Harvard. Now, there's a lot to say about academics, and there's a lot to say about research and about liberalism, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. To me, this is somewhat of a pretty shocking, and if you will, a comment on society today. This is from a researcher in Harvard. See if you can follow this for a minute. This is a researcher whose name is Matthew Killingsworth out of Harvard, who measures happiness. Right? He's a quote-unquote happiness expert. He's the one who would know a tremendous amount about what makes people happy and what kinds of things give us happiness. So this is what he says. Overall, interacting with your friends is better than interacting with your spouse, which is better than interacting with other relatives, which is better than interacting with other acquaintances. Following? Which is better than interacting with your parents, which is better than interacting with children who are roughly on the same level as interacting with strangers. Now again, this is research that's out there in the world. Our children cause us anxiety. It's a challenge. And if we don't recognize it, and we don't able to accept it, and we keep trying our hardest to not get anxious and not get stressed out by being a parent, we will continue to go through this endless fight against reality. A few more things just about anxiety, just to recognize the realities. Children used to work for the home. They used to provide money. They used to provide, they were given chores, they were given responsibilities. Today, we don't do that. None of us sends our kids out. And if our kids make bar mitzvah money or they make money on because their grandmother wanted to give them something, we put them in a piggy bank and we set up a college fund for them, and we don't take it to pay for that week's groceries. We suffer from this ultimate paradox. We want to give children the things that we didn't have growing up. We want our children to succeed. We want our children to be better than we are. And then we call them spoiled. We call them entitled. We say that they demand too much from us. I wouldn't ask anybody here to raise their hand, but if you think about how many people parent their children from a place of being afraid that their kids are going to go off the derech or get messed up, how often do we consistently judge our own inherent value? How well we are as human beings based on how well we parent? How often do we compare our kids to other kids? And finally, how much does stress kill our ability to be empathic, to develop relationships with our kids, to give our kids time? So, I printed this little thing that said, breathe. And it wasn't really necessarily for me to remember that, although sometimes I do. But I think to some degree, our focus when it comes to parenting might be a little bit skewed. You very much can go and find every theorist, even like myself, every theorist get up and say whatever it is they want about what the key to parenting is. And you can go to every bookstore. You can learn many, many, many different svarim. And you can read stories, and you can speak to your rabbanim, and you can speak to your parents, and you can speak to your kids, and you can contract, you can do all kinds of things. But I would like to suggest tonight somewhat of a paradigm shift, away from parenting per se, and a focus more on the self of the parent. So I'm going to ask for a quick volunteer just to tell me, can anybody in this room define for me the word chinuch? What does chinuch mean? Anybody? I use other people as props often. What does chinuch mean?
Teaching, not necessarily teaching actual subjects, but I would say probably manners and respect and trying to keep your children on the Torah way. I mean, that's what I would consider.
So teaching manners and respect and keeping our children on the Torah way. Okay? Anybody else want to offer a suggestion about what is chinuch? To guide your children into.
That's time for a child. You can generalize that.
Okay. So chinuch is to be able to guide your children somewhere. So I would say that chinuch is very similar to what both of you said. A way of teaching, of giving over some kind of information that guides your children to some goal, whatever that goal might be. What I would like to do is juxtapose chinuch with the word Mesorah. Mesorah, most of us think of the word Mesorah as being what's passed down from generation to generation. What I would really like to suggest is that Mesorah goes a lot deeper than simply, wearing the same kind of sheitel that your mother did, or the same kind of hat that your father did. Mesorah comes from the word to be moser, to give over something. Think of the word mesiras nefesh. Mesiras nefesh means that I give up something of myself. I express something out of myself for some other purpose. To me, the word Mesorah, as a parent, means that I'm giving something of myself to my child. It's not teaching. It's not giving my child guidance. It's not giving my child advice. It's not giving my child halachas. It's not teaching my children hashkafa. That's chinuch. Mesorah is something that goes way beyond that. Mesorah is my ability to create a space for my child, that my child recognizes that their life is meaningful. To me, the saddest thing as a therapist is when adults come into my office, and sometimes they could spend years in my office, and they can't pinpoint exactly what their problem is. One client once said to me that he's been in therapy, he's been to so many different therapists, and he's been, exploring every single thing. He went to a hypnotist because he thought he was molested, and he went to this because he thought he had an addiction, and he went to this, and he can't put his finger on it. He said to me, it's like, if you crack an egg, and then the egg is like on the bottom, there's a little shell in the bottom of the egg, and you stick your finger in, and you can't get it, and then it slips away, and you can't get this, and you can't get that. He said to me, that's what I feel my life is about. And I knew, because I've seen this before, what he was suffering from was most probably, and as it turned out it was true, some of the worst forms of emotional neglect. See, we talk about rejection, we talk about molestation, we talk about all the bad things that parents could do for their children, but there's something that's a lot more insidious, and that's emotional neglect. When children grow up in a way where they don't recognize that their footsteps can make footprints, or that their dreams mean anything, or that their failures don't ruin their lives, but are simply another part of who they are, when children don't grow up with that, then they end up with chaos and loneliness and emptiness. So, as a way of turning my statement into something positive, the word Messiah to me means the ability to give over to my child a sense that their life is meaningful. And why is their life meaningful? Because it's not based on anything. It's what Chazal call an ava she'ena tluya b'davar. It's not based on something. And in fact, I can't even describe it. You can't describe what the self of a human being is. It's something very amorphous. It's like that little shell in the bottom of the egg in that bowl. Because the self of a person is the atzmius of a person. And we as parents are the ones who are primed to give our children that. We're the ones that are given that opportunity. If you think about the trajectory that usually starts from Rosh Chodesh Elul, if you grow up in certain circles, Elul means fear and negativity. If you grow up in other circles, Elul means opportunities. But you go through the whole month of Elul. You come back from the bungalow colony, or you go back to school, and then you go through Rosh Hashanah, Aseret Yemei Tshuva, and the climax of Yom Kippur. What's the next Yom Tov? Is Sukkos. Zman Simchaseinu, right? Mishmach Mazad and Marvin Simcha. In the times of the Beis Hamikdash, the highlight of Sukkos was the Simchas Beis HaShoeva. And that was really the culmination, it was the epitome, it was the climax of everything that started on Elul and went all the way to the Simchas Beis HaShoeva. It's funny to think about. You think about Reb Chaim Kanievsky sitting in the Beis Hamikdash juggling, eight balls of fire. Or Rav Steinman, or the Belzer Rebbe, whatever it is, doing somersaults and acrobatics. But that's what the Tanoim did in the Beis Hamikdash. So there was a Tana in the Beis Hamikdash whose name was Hillel. Everybody knows who Hillel was. V'ahavta l'reacha kamecha. The Gemara says that Hillel would say during the Simchas Beis HaShoeva, Im ani kan, hakol kan. If I am here, then everybody and everything is here. V'im eini kan, and if I'm not here, mi kan, who's here? The ani of a human being is the most important part of who we are. Like I said, it's very amorphous. It's hard to explain what it is. But as parents, we're the ones that have the opportunity to create, to be moser, to give of ourselves a space for them to recognize that their lives are meaningful. Somebody once pointed out to me that the word meaningful, starts with the letters M-E. M-E, me. That me, my life, is meaningful. And that's what meaning means. Meaningful, when something is meaningful, it means that me, my existence, is meaningful. Let's see if I can find this without, I think I lost the page. I like strange poets. So there's a guy named Ian Thomas. He wrote a whole bunch of books. He writes this genre that he calls micro stories. Most stories, people say the story and then you get the punchline. So he likes to write punchlines without the stories. So it's very cute. He has a whole bunch of books. This one is called I Wrote This For You. So, yes, it's true that it's a fallacy that everybody can do anything that they want. That's a fallacy. I think everybody would agree with that. But think about how many people grow up without a sense of self, where, without understanding that their lives are meaningful, go through their entire lives completely as missed opportunities. So I just want to read this little poem because it struck home to me, and I was thinking about this. So this is called "The Truth is Born in Strange Places." Okay? So he says like this: Joan of Arc, not anybody knows who Joan of Arc is. Joan of Arc came back as a little girl in Japan, and her father told her to stop listening to her imaginary friends. Elvis Presley was born again in a small village in Sudan. He died hungry at the age of 9, never knowing what a guitar was. Michelangelo was drafted into the military at age 18 in Korea. He learned how to paint his face black with shoe polish and killed. Jackson Pollock got to stop making a mess somewhere in Russia. Got told to stop making a mess somewhere in Russia. Hemingway, to this day, writes DVD instruction manuals somewhere in China. He's an old man on a factory line. You would never recognize him. Gandhi was born to a wealthy stockbroker in New York. He never forgave the world after his father threw himself from his office window on the 21st floor. And he ends off with this punchline. And everywhere, and everyone, somewhere, is someone, if we only give them a chance. That's what the opportunity that we as parents have. It's not so much a question of, did I say the right thing? Did I do the right thing? Do I know how to give a timeout? Do I know how to create this structure or that structure? It's a question of, can I hold my children in a container so that my children recognize that no matter what they experience in life, no matter what they do, no matter what they choose, that there's a sense of meaning in their life. To me, I would love to be put out of business as a therapist and not have to deal with the end results of people who, like I said, end up with chaos, end up with insignificance, end up feeling that their lives are completely meaningless. So how do we do this? And worse than that, how do we do this if we ourselves feel that sense of insignificance? So I'm going to make a few suggestions. And most of these suggestions are focused not so much on what you do as a parent, but what you do as a person. That hopefully can translate into things that your children will learn from. Because the main thing that we give our children to be most ser, to give over to our children, is you. That's who we are. That's what our children benefit from. That's what makes us into who we are, is who our parents were. So self-awareness. So much of Yiddishkeit is based on the world of chinuch, the do's, the don'ts. Make sure that you did this, make sure you did that. Yes chumras, not chumras. More love, less love. Okay, it's all good, it's all important. These are all important discussions. But there's not that much that's focused on the experience of what it means to be a human being. And to me, that's something that's really, really important. What is it like to be a human being? What is it like to be reflective of what it means to be a human being? You know, human beings, the differences between human beings and animals are discussed philosophically, they're discussed by psychologists, by scientists, lahavdil, they're discussed through all the thousands of years of Mamari Chazal, Machshava. But it seems to be clear that one thing that human beings know how to do that animals don't know how to do and trees don't know how to do is to be reflective of self. To be reflective and to know and to be aware. Knowing how to reflect on your own life is a key to recognizing that your life is significant. Because if you don't think your life is significant, there's no point in reflecting on your life. And in order to reflect on your life, you have to have the honesty to recognize that you're going to confront certain things that are not so good. And so the importance of self-awareness as a human being, and as you'll see in a moment how that translates into being a good parent, is very important. So what is self-awareness? So I was sitting once in session and a client leaned over to me and he said he had this like aha moment. It was actually it was very dramatic. He was holding a cup and he spilled his coffee all over the place. And I jumped back and he says, I finally got what you've been trying to do to me all these years. And I'm waiting to hear like this really nasty thing comes out of his mouth. And he points to me. I was holding in my hand my glasses and I was wiping them with a tissue. And he says to me, you're wiping your glasses. And I said, it's the most innocuous thing I've done all day. So he says to me, no. He says, I finally got it. He said, self-awareness is like wiping your glasses. I said, okay, I'm waiting to hear this deep line. And he said something that really blew me away. He said to me, he goes, self-awareness is like wiping your glasses. You wake up in the morning, you get up, you go through your day, and it's not until usually about 12:30, 1 o'clock in the afternoon that you realize that pretty much your whole day, everything looks a little bit blurry. And you start to say to yourself, the world is a really bad place, things are not so good, things are dirty, things are blurry. And if you're lucky, it dawns on you by roughly 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon that your glasses are dirty. The world isn't dirty, but your glasses are dirty. So you take your glasses off and you wipe your glasses clean. And you put it back on and you say, okay, good. I got rid of that mood. Now things look cheerier, things look clearer. Great. He says, if you pay attention though, after another few minutes you realize that if you look a little bit like this, things look a little blurry again. And you take your glasses off and you try to wipe it and you realize that there's a scratch on it. And he says those scratches are your character defects. Things that you're not really going to change. You just have to learn how to see around and you have to learn how to deal with. That's self-awareness. And I grabbed out my little notebook and I wrote it down, and so now I'm using it 3 or 4 years later because I think it's really, really accurate. The ability to look internally into your own life reinforces the message that you are a meaningful human being. I'm just looking at the time. I'm gonna move ahead. But here, to me, is a significant point. How you treat yourself is probably the greatest message that your kids pick up on. Yes, of course, chinuch, yes, we have to do all the right things, etc., etc., etc. But if you think for a minute your kids don't know what goes on in your adult life, your kids know a lot more. If you're hard on yourself, your kids will be affected by the anxiety that you produce without even you realizing it. If you lead a double life, your kids are going to pick up on the fact that you're holding secrets. They're going to know it. Even if they can't verbalize it, they're going to know it. If you have a value system that you don't really keep to, your kids are going to grow up with somehow recognizing that there's a split. That there's a split between Ruchnius and Gashmius. That there's a split between what it means to be Jewish and what it means to go on vacation or whatever. Your kids pick up on these things. Our kids pick up on these things. It's something that gets transmitted through the air. So the ability to be self-aware of your own stuff, recognizing your own significance in your life, translates into your kids being able to pick up on things. The recognition that when you're stressed, especially when you're stressed out about something your kid's doing, when you're stressed, your kid is going to inevitably feel rejected by you. Yes, there can be resilience, and yes, our recognition that children can learn to come back from things, but your stress translates into your kids feeling stressed. And of course, when it comes to self-awareness, we have to be able to recognize that if you punish your kid because your kid is doing something wrong and you don't recognize that the punishment doesn't meet the crime, it's simply that your buttons got triggered. And it's not about your kid, but it's about you. If you are not able to be clear enough with yourself to recognize that, then your kid suffers. By extension, I would like to move this along to talk about taking care of your own needs. Most of us, I would assume most of us in this room, are not just parents, but are breadwinners. And because of that, most of our lives look like we're juggling. Putting out fires, trying to make sure we can figure out at the very least how not to miss that carpool or whatever it is, how not to miss that chavrusa, how to make it enough time at work so that my boss doesn't yell at me or whatever. But it's really, really important to take care of yourself. Your happiness is not dependent on your kid. Your happiness is dependent on you and the choices that you make in your life. We have to be better at taking care of ourselves. Because the better we take care of ourselves, the better space we give our kids, the happier we are, the better our kids respond to us, and the better our kids recognize that their lives are meaningful. I was driving over here tonight, Tuesday night. I usually don't work, and I'm usually home. And the irony of the fact that I'm not home with my kids and I'm out giving a speech on parenting is very clear to me. And so I made up with my daughter, who hates when I go out and do things in public. She hates famous people. I don't know why she hates famous people, but I made up with her that she's going to call me, and we're going to talk, and we're going to spend time on the phone together. And the clear recognition that I was stressed because I have a client who's in crisis while I'm up here, and I have to make it here because 8 o'clock was a very hard 8 o'clock, and we started exactly at 8 o'clock. And at the same time, my daughter wants my attention, and I want to give her that attention. But if for a minute I'm going to snap at her because she forgot to take her clothes to her gymnastics because, well, that's a mistake that she made. My wife told her a million times, you have to take your clothes to gymnastics. And here she's complaining to me on the phone that she didn't take her clothes to gymnastics. If I don't recognize that I'm stressed, and in that moment if I snap at her, that's my problem. That's not her problem. If I can't hold that and recognize that, then she's going to react negatively. And of course, when we talk about stress, we have to recognize the toxicity of people in our lives. Whether it's exes, whether it's soon-to-be exes, but people in our lives that drain every moment of our own happiness out of us, to recognize that we also have to learn how to take care of that. Because our happiness starts the ball rolling to our kids' happiness. I mentioned my daughter, so I'll share with you a very, very quick vignette. I was sitting at the kitchen table doing homework with her one night and doing the cardinal no-no, and I had my phone out and my phone buzzed and I picked it up and I looked at it and it was a WhatsApp message from one of the 4 billion WhatsApp groups I'm a part of. And I read the message, and this is what the message said, okay? I'm sure I'm not the only one who got this. A teacher comes home before supper time. Her husband is sitting by the computer. After supper, she sits down with her work, marking essays her pupils wrote that day. When reading the last one, she bursts into tears. Her husband noticed and asked, "Why are you crying? What happened?" So his wife replied, "Yesterday, I gave the children an assignment to write an essay. The topic of the essay was, what would you like to be in this modern world?" "Okay, that's a good topic," the husband said. So you know the punchline. The wife said, "Well, let me read to you what one pupil wrote. I would like to turn into a smartphone. My parents love their smartphones so much and are so busy with them that they forget I exist at times. My father comes home from work tired, and he turns to his smartphone and not to me. If my parents have important work, they will still answer their smartphones on the first ring. But I can cry and beg for a long time to help me when I need them before they notice." And of course, then we tell them to stop fetching. "They are busy surfing on their smartphones, so that's why I want to turn into a smartphone." The husband's feelings for this boy were aroused, and he asked his wife, "And who is this student?" And she answered, "Our son." Right? I think technology is absolutely fantastic. There's no question in my mind that when Mashiach comes, this is how we're all going to find out instantaneously. Or before Mashiach comes. The amount of shiurim that exist online is insane. Thousands upon thousands of shiurim, of inspirational clips, etc., etc., etc. So I'm not going to sit here and knock technology. It's a beautiful thing. But let's be real. This creates stress. This gives our children the recognition that they are less important than this. And I'm not forgetting looking at anything bad or questionable or inappropriate. I'm not talking about anything like that. What this has done to social relationships, the ability for people to have social etiquette, the patience to sit and have a conversation over a cup of coffee about nothing. We don't have it anymore. It's tweets, and it's WhatsApp messages, and it's inspirational WhatsApp messages. But we can't ever stop. We don't ever stop. We don't have the patience to ever stop and look and see and figure out how we can apply these things to ourselves. Save Brother Bell. Last but not least, in terms of my rants as a therapist, and then I'm going to kind of wrap this up with hopefully something more positive. There are two specific, what I call, to me, they're epidemics that exist in the world today. Certainly in my office, and without a shadow of a doubt in the Frum community. Number one is the art of listening. Think about everything that you went through today. How many conversations that you had where you spent your time listening, waiting to see when it's your turn to say your piece? Think about how many times you listen with an agenda, analyzing, judging, comparing, etc. The art of listening is the ability to stop, be grounded, and connect to somebody. And it's a lost art. It's a lost art. And when we can't do that for other people, and other people can't do that for us, we don't feel connected in the world. And when we can't do that for our kids, they don't feel connected in the world. So if we want to give our kids a sense that their lives are meaningful, we want to learn how to cultivate our ability to listen. Sometimes when I'm feeling very cheesy, I tell my clients it's a question of learning how to hug your children with your ears. You have to learn how to hug your children with your ears. Listen. Just, excuse me for a minute, just shut up and listen. Just listen. Forgive me, Mom, for saying shut up. Sorry. I wash my mouth out, so. So, let me kind of shift into something a little bit more chizik oriented, and we'll kind of wrap things up a little bit. Perfect parents perfect imperfectionism. Again, the perfect parent perfects the art of imperfectionism. We are not perfect people, and we will never be perfect people. And by extension, we are not perfect parents, and we will never be perfect parents. The Noam Elimelech once said that when he comes up to Shemayim, they're going to ask him, so did you learn Torah? Did you learn Torah the right way? And he's going to say no. Did you daven the right way? And he's going to say no. Were you nice to people the right way? And he's going to say no. And the Noam Elimelech said, they're going to ask me all these questions, and I'm going to answer all these questions. No, I didn't do it. And when they're finished asking me these questions, they're going to turn to me and they're going to send me straight to Gan Eden. You know why? Because I was honest. Because I was honest. The ability to recognize that your imperfections as a parent don't mean that you're going to ruin your child. It's okay. You're imperfect. I'm imperfect. You're imperfect. Your therapist is imperfect. Your kid's therapist is imperfect. The people who have written all the fancy books about how to be parents are imperfect. There are a bunch that told you what to do with your kids are imperfect. Everybody's imperfect. To recognize your imperfections is humility. To recognize your imperfections is authenticity. Your kids, our kids, feed off authenticity. They don't feed off perfection. Without raising your hands, how many people in this room have ever apologized to their kid because they have made a mistake and not their kid? Okay, you can raise your hands, that's great. Great. It's a beautiful thing because when your children recognize your own authenticity and your own imperfections, your children thrive. They're much more interested in your authenticity than they are in your ability to be perfect. You can say, I don't know to your kid. You can have a bad day, it's okay. Don't beat yourself up. Go back into the room and give him another hug. So I'm going to do this more like by a raise of hands. I had a little exercise, and I've been up here for longer than I thought I would be. I have a little exercise that might kind of take this thing out with a bang. And I don't know if we should like do this by a raise of hands and see like, should we just like wrap this up, or should we do this little exercise that I have? I'm not giving any details as to what kind of exercise.
Do it.
Do it. Okay. So if everybody could grab a little piece of paper, if there's enough papers. Yeah, there's more. I have more papers than you. Good. Draw a line down the middle of your paper. If you're OCD, you can fold the paper in half and then draw a line down the middle. I'm sorry, only because I saw you do it. Guilty. I'm going to ask you a question. Take a minute to think about it, and then write your answers down. Okay? It's a two-part question. This is going on whichever side you want, but on one side. So there's two questions, and I'll say the questions twice. Question number one is, what is your greatest fear as a parent? About you as a parent. What is your greatest fear about you as a parent? What is your greatest fear about your own parenting skills? That's question number one. Question number two is, what is your greatest fear for your child? What is the thing you are the most afraid of for your child? All of those things go on column number one. Okay? No cheating. Again, the questions are as follows. Number one is, what is your greatest fear about your own parenting abilities? And question number two is, what is your greatest fear for your children? Here's the second side of the page. Also, two questions. Question number one is, what are you most grateful for that you are a parent? That's question number one. What are you most grateful for about you being a parent? And question number two is, what about your kids make you the most grateful? Again, two questions. Question number one is, what are you the most grateful for in terms of you being a parent? And question number two is, what are you most grateful for about your kids? As you finish up, I'm just going to tell you the following. In psychology, there's something called the negativity bias. The negativity bias basically says like this. Our brains are kind of hardwired to process negative information 5 times more powerful than positive information. In other words, if you go through your day and you have 10 things negative happen to you and 10 things positive happen to you, you're going to get a 10 on your brain processing for the positive things and a 50 on your brain processing for the negative things. In other words, there's a natural biological process that takes place within us that automatically gets attracted to seeing the negative. So I pose the following kind of test to you. You have a choice. You can raise your kids from the first column, or you can raise your kids from the second column. It's your choice. You get to do it. Either you raise your kids from a place of fear, constantly trying to figure out how you could put the fires out, or you could raise your kids from a place of gratitude, of recognition of what it means to me personally to be a parent, and secondly, what it is about my kids that make me grateful. It's simply an attitude. The Gemara in Kedushin says that there are 3 partners in the creation of man. Shloisha Shutfim B'Adam, the 3 partners in the creation of man. Father, a mother, and Hashem. I'm going to leave you with the following question. Usually, we relate to Hashem either as an Eved, we relate to Hashem as a son or a daughter, we relate to Hashem sometimes even as being a wife. But nowhere else in Chazal does it say that we're a partner. A partner with Hashem means that I, as a parent, and you as a parent, and all of us as a parent, get to be a partner. It's a partnership, like a business partnership. It has its ups and downs, there's no question. Sometimes you feel like strangling your partner's neck. But I leave you with the question of, if I can think about this, what is it like for me that Hashem chose me to be a partner in His creation, the creation of the world, the creation of human being? V'asu li mikdash v'shechanti b'seicham, right? What does it mean to me that Hashem chose me to be a partner with Him in the creation of the world, in the creation of the human being? Whether that child grew up in your womb, or that child grew up in your heart, or that child grew up in your spouse's heart, whatever it is. But Hashem chose you and you and you and me and all the other parents in the world to be His partner. So we should have the fortitude to take stock and to reflect. We should have the authenticity to recognize our own shortcomings, our own difficulties. Everybody, all the Sfarim point out that when Adar comes, we don't add on any simcha. There's no added mitzvah that's supposed to bring on a new kind of simcha. It's simply extending that which is already there. And I think that if we can learn to reflect better on ourselves, reflect better on what it means to have our own meaning in our own lives, and be able to take that out of ourselves and give that to our children, to give over, to be moiser nefesh, and at the same time keep our own sanity and keep track of our own happiness, then we can raise a generation that together can greet Mashiach in the Beis HaMikdash and ultimately wipe away all the tears and all the difficulties and all the challenges that exist in the world. So, have a good night. Ask me questions.
You said two epidemics. One was art of
Oh,
listening.
you're right.
I didn't say the
I didn't say the
second.
second one. Two epidemics that I see. Number one is the crisis of people not listening, and the second to me is male shame. Male shame. M-A-L-E. Masculine shame. Masculine shame.
Boys don't cry.
Well, it's way beyond boys don't cry. I didn't say it because I didn't really have the time to get into it. But I would say that the underreported amount of shame that exists in men for the sake of being men in the world today, what feminism has done, which is a beautiful thing for women, has also demasculinized men. And it's true in the greater culture, and it's true in the frum culture as well. My wife, I remember discussing this with my wife. We were talking about shidduchim, and this was her take, and I'm not agreeing, not agreeing, but it's just an insight. When we look at the shidduch crisis, and we look at what it means to be a frum girl versus what it means to be a frum guy. What it means to be a frum girl and what it means to be a frum guy, the guys have a very hard time. Because if a guy isn't staying in yeshiva, then his prospects for shidduchim go down through the floor. If a guy has difficulty without being too graphic, if a guy has difficulty with natural inborn hormonal drives, boom, shame. If a guy isn't able to keep 3 minyanim a day, boom, shame, etc. That's just with frumkeit. What about many, many, many other things that men are simply expected to keep it together? I am not in any way, shape, or form taking away the struggles of what it means to be a woman. Not at all, zero. But what I am saying is that we do suffer in the world from a crisis of fathers and sons, that breakdown that existed. You know, there was a point before the 1940s where this is reported. I've seen this reported in many different places where fathers would spend an average of 4 hours a day with their sons. Think about what goes on today, right? A guy goes to work, he gets maybe 20 minutes, and in those 20 minutes he has to figure out if he's going to discipline his child, if he's going to listen to what his wife says, etc., 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 etc. Again, I'm not in any way, shape, or form taking away what it's like to be a woman. I'm simply suggesting that in my office, certainly, the amount of what I would call the shame of what it means to be a man is a big problem. So that was the other one.
Good question. Well, question and a statement. a lot of therapists or they talk about how we need to do all these things, but a lot of them don't get into actually how you do that. Like, yes, we need to spend time on ourselves. Yes, we need to focus on our kids. Yes, yes, yes. But you're talking about a group of mostly single parents who, in a standard family, Hashem created that a mother and a father focus on the child, which gives a little bit more flexibility for the child to have that attention because there's two parents. Most of us in this room don't have that. So, you're standing there, you're saying, like, you need to find time for yourself. I can tell you 99% of the women in this room, I don't know about the men, don't have time for themselves. How do you create that?
So I'm going to repeat your question, which is a very, very real question, and your statement. To me, I think it's more of a statement than it is a question.
Well, it's a question of how to.
Yes, 100%. The question is how to create that time when you're a single parent, and you don't have the luxury of having two parents that can double team a child, and you can split the time evenly. And I would say to you that as a therapist, I don't think this is a luxury, but I don't have answers. I sit with individuals all day, and I listen to individuals, and I help them figure out within their lives the things that they need to do. So yes, your point is very well taken. I can get up here and I could speak and I could say all the things that you should or shouldn't do. I don't have a specific answer to turn to you and say to you, yeah, I would admit that and say to you, I don't have that. But what I would say is not to add stress to your life, but if you could recognize the importance of it and keep it in the back of your mind so that if there are places in your life where you feel guilty, taking that time for yourself, don't feel guilty. If there are periods in your life where if it's 10 minutes extra in whatever it is that you're doing, take it. It's important. You need it. So I can give that as a message in a general klal. To tell you specifics of people's lives, I mean...
And just one more thing. This is a room full of women, and this event is open for men and women. Why do you feel the room is packed with women? And where are the guys?
That's a great question. Where are the guys, right?
I mean,
A lot of
since
them are
most of
single
us are
parents
divorced
and they're not
parents,
there.
it should be a joint effort, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't, it's no.
No, I'm just
Dr. Ball,
curious
it's
if
a
you have
point-
insight as to why they don't make
Look,
more effort there.
Look, I did not, I specifically,
Most of us have babysitters at home, the men don't have the kids tonight, so most, I would assume, from looking around the room, I can imagine most of them don't, like, we're in that participation.
right, so I would turn to the men who are here and I would offer them a chance to respond to you. But I don't, fantastic. What?
Therapist, what's your insight?
Right, what's your insight? Why do the men not feel this obligation to show up?
Men are not into self-help. What's my insight as a therapist? So I'm going to say, maybe to piggyback for a minute, to maybe piggyback for a minute on a statement that I said before. In the last, I believe it's been basically in the last 10 to 20, I think it's in the last 20 years, I don't remember. In the last 20 years, again, this is a secular research paper that came out that said that in the last 20 years, with women spending more and more time in the workforce, that men seem to be more and more of the complainers of not being able to figure out how to balance their work and home life. I think, I hope, certainly in my practice, I see that men are taking more of an interest in wanting to be home and wanting to be connected. But I think that most, well, I can't say most men. I have to say, I would say it more like this. In the practical world of what it means to be a man, there's a tremendous amount that's put on their shoulders of trying to figure out how to balance this, and this, and it's not manly to want to be home. It's not manly to want to connect to your children. It's not manly to want to come out and have a speech on this. It's more important to have a chavrusa. It's more important to do something more productive, etc. That's my insight. I don't know that you can take it to the bank, but yeah, I think it's very, very real. The fact that this side of the room, which are women, are packed, and this side of the room has 4 or 5 men. Yeah, it's it's a sad,
Someone commented, it's the way we're created.
It's definitely the way we're created.
what does that mean? The way we-
Women are created to want relationships, building relationships.
Somebody said multitask, somebody said building
We're
relationships.
created with that need and that drive and that
But
desire.
that's when you as a single parent.
I disagree very vehemently with that statement.
I'm sorry, that changes as a single
I-
parent.
I'm sorry, one second. I disagree very vehemently with the statement.
Look at the thought process, it's hard to know.
So I'm going to rein you in for a minute, and then you can continue this conversation. I disagree very strongly with the statement that women are created to want connection, and men are not created to want to build a connection. I don't
I
agree
didn't
with
say that.
that.
I didn't say that.
Okay.
The difference between men and women is men need respect, women are into relationships. That's our basic difference.
I don't buy that.
It's a-
I don't buy that.
It's a given. It's
I don't buy that as a given. I don't buy that as a
You
given.
like that, I'm sure.
Become a common.
Well, of course I've learned that. Of course I've read those things, and of course I've
These are
heard
our
those theories.
skills, not that
I
it
don't
can't change and it can grow.
I don't buy it. I don't buy that you can split across genders and say that. Okay, we're kind of bouncing around. I just want to finish my point. I don't buy the statement that men are less interested in developing relationships than women are.
Maybe growing and learning and changing.
That's a different.
I don't know that I would agree with that. What I would say is that what it means to grow as a man is different than what it means to grow as a woman. Because in our yeshiva systems, what it means to grow as a man is to take on more chumras.
Right, then I'm growing this way, then I'm growing and bettering and
Right.
finding ways to adapt to the situation before us. They're growing in like the gym or learning or whatever they're doing there.
Correct.
Business.
Correct. It could be because of their mentoring. Yeah, so I think that fits back into some of my thoughts about men and men in general and the kind of bad rap that men get. Because the system trains them a certain way. I would take one more question or comment.
A little off topic, but you mentioned with your daughter and her gym clothes. It's not her issue, it's your issue or whatever. I feel like a lot of kids in single parent homes are maybe less responsible.
Okay.
So how would you deal with that in your situation effectively so that she does remember to take her things?
I specifically.
Without being critical.
Right, I specifically stayed away tonight from getting into things that I deemed more like chinuch oriented. To me, a lot of the practicalities of, and maybe I should have spent more time addressing it, but I wanted to stay more away from the practicalities of things you can do as a single parent to help your kids be more responsible or less responsible. Look, you're right that the general nature of a home is two parents, yes, and that in the hope is that the father adds this and the mother adds this, and when you don't have that, the question of how you can learn to A, compensate, and B, do more than just compensate, but actually give. So yes. To me, those are much more on a case-by-case or situation-by-situation basis, because you have to know your own stuff, you have to know your own capabilities, you have to know what things you need to let go of. When I made that comment before about my daughter, all I meant was that, yeah, okay, she's a young kid and she's got a lot going on her plate, and sometimes she's irresponsible. My point was more that I have to recognize my own anxiety level, so that I'm not responding to her from my anxiety level, and I'm instead responding what's appropriate to her. She doesn't need to hear every time she does something wrong that she did something wrong. So that's my thing.
You just listened?
What?
You just listened to her vent?
Yeah, I did.
That's it.
Yeah, I listened to her, and I heard about everything else that she did during the day.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Hopefully we'll have you back.
I appreciate the opportunity.
We have a tight schedule here. We have here Thank you, men. Sorry, we're now beginning the women. We have Mrs. Cynthia now, which is, I don't know your title.
Oh, I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist.
A licensed marriage and family therapist. She'll tell us about how her journey to becoming a strong woman as she is today. She'll tell us all the secrets.
Accurate description, successful step-parent and remarried wife. So, let's see, I'll paint a picture for you. In 2008, I was 39 for most of the year, and I was newly divorced, and I went up to LA. I lived in Southern California at the time. I went up to LA with my now ex-husband. We got a get, and then I came home and I put myself on Frumster. And I was not necessarily the easiest sell in terms of finding a husband. Just to back up a little bit, I had been married, I believe it was 8.5 years, to a Jewish man, and I'm a Giorit. I actually converted before I met my first husband, but it was not halachic. So I went through a couple more conversions, and the Orthodox one happened 3 weeks before I gave birth to my first son. I won't get into the reason why we divorced, but we had an amicable divorce, and I wanted to get remarried. And I was living in Yorba Linda, California. How many people have heard of Yorba Linda, California? How many people have heard of Orange County, California? Okay, so it's in Orange County, and it's I live 2.5 miles away from Richard Nixon's birthplace and burial place and library. So anyway, the only place in town was Chabad, and thankfully it was there, within walking distance of my home. And the two from men in the community were the rabbis, and of course they were married. So I thought, you know, I'm going to need to get online. I'm going to need to go up to LA. I had a couple of friends in LA, and it was not easy dating at first. Another part of my hard sell, well, let's see, I was a Giorit, still am. Giorit, lived in Orange County, no from men. And then my son, who's now 13, has severe autism. And we're not talking about the kind where, oh, you know, the kid goes to college and has some difficulties, you know, eventually, and he gets through all these obstacles. My son is now in a group home in Long Island, and it's not a bad place. It's not an institution like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. You know, just maybe even 5 years ago, I thought it would have been absolutely horrific to even consider giving up one of my children to a group home, but it was actually one of the best things that I ever did. I still see him once a week. I have full parental rights. And credit goes to my ex-husband. We were very good co-parents together. So it was an amicable divorce. I put myself on Frumster. I'm pretty good at promoting myself, I have to say. So I even joked to one of my friends. I said, I was there for Shabbat in LA, and I said, you know, if I had the money to put a billboard up, I mean, maybe I could like put a billboard up. Not that I think that I'm so great, but just that, you know, I really wanted to find a husband. And not only that, I wanted to have more kids. So I'm 40, you know, Giorit, severely autistic child living in Orange County. And, you know, on paper it didn't look that great. So I dated a few people. I mean, there weren't that many men to date. But I got a response from Frumster. It's now known as JWed. And my current husband, he contacted me, but he wanted me to know. I don't think we're a good match. I'm letting you know. But I'm really inspired by your story. So you just keep up the good work and you're gonna find your Prince Charming one day. And I thought, what a nice man. And I was feeling particularly low at the time because you go on Frumster or JDate or Saw You at Sinai, and first of all, I was a little bit naive about the Orthodox community. My only exposure was sometimes going for Shabbat and Yom Tov to LA, but I didn't live in a community like this. And I thought when people said they're Orthodox, you know, the men were Orthodox. And, you know, you can look a certain way, but maybe you're not, you know, when it comes to it. So that was kind of a wake-up call. I'll just leave it at that. Anyway, I thought, I was feeling kind of low, and this man contacted me, said, we're not a good match, I have 4 older children, I'm ready for grandchildren. I thought that meant he had, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 younger children, because the guy that I was dating had 9. So I thought, okay, he was a rabbi in LA. He went out a couple times, didn't work out, but I thought, what a nice man. I'm not going to hear from him again, but that was really nice. So anyway, I responded, and then he responded back, and I thought, wow, for somebody who doesn't think we're a good match, you know, this is kind of interesting. So I said, I don't know, we didn't talk on the phone or anything, we just did this little email thing. Well, a month later, he's in Las Vegas, and he emails me through Frumster and says, oh, hi, this is my cell phone number, and how you doing? And thinking, oh, interesting for, you know, a guy who doesn't think that we're a good match. So I call him up, and we talk for an hour, and then he still thinks we're not a good match. And I couldn't convince him to come over from Las Vegas to, you know, meet me in Orange County so we could just chat and meet each other face to face. And then he was talking about, you know, his circumstances of why he divorced. He had a very difficult divorce, unfortunately, and he said there were lots of women to date in Brooklyn, so he probably wasn't going to have a hard time getting a wife. And that sounds bad, like he's really arrogant. He's not, but I mean, you know, he dated dozens of women, and here I am in Orange County, and you know, I dated maybe 5 other men, and the dates were few and far between. And I thought I would be willing to move to New York because I know the autism services are good in New York, and they were good in California. So anyway, we kind of touched base. He always seemed to call me every once in a while. And I ended up dating a guy I thought I was going to marry, a very rich guy, from, in quotations. And our 6th date was going to Israel. And then I said I wanted to go home early, and he dropped me off at the airport, and that was it. That was 30 days. Everything was on the up and up. But it was a good thing that we ended up not marrying because I found out some really bad things. So I'm on my way to work. I was feeling devastated though. I thought, oh, you know, this guy, he seems great, he's charming. I mean, I don't know about your experience, but sometimes the most charming people can end up being really dangerous too. And I'm not against people who have charm, but if it's like I knew something was wrong. And that's why I couldn't sleep when I was in Israel. And I was like, you know what, when Shabbat's over, I have to get out of here. I don't know what's going on with me, but it's like my body was telling me something's not right. So good old Dave, my current husband, I remember being on the freeway, going to work. I worked at a partial hospitalization program. So it's a place where people who are severely and chronically mentally ill, they go as a day program to keep them out of the full-time hospital. And I was very grateful for my job. It was a wonderful place. But I remember going on the freeway, and I retrieved a voicemail message from Dave, who had called during the time when I was gone for the first part of Pesach in Israel. And he said, just want to know how you're doing. And so I called him back, and he just seemed really concerned about me, like a friend. It was very sweet. And I told him what happened. He said, oh, it's probably for the best. And I said, you know, what's happening with you? Oh, I'm dating a woman, and it's going really well. And, you know, I think something here is going to happen pretty soon. So I was happy for him. And, I mean, not in my wildest dreams did I ever think that he would be the one. Also, he was in his 50s, and I was around 40. So, you know, ideally I wanted somebody in their 40s. So that brings me to a point, just kind of as an aside. I think we all have lists of qualities that we want about people, you know, between this age and this age. You know, certain qualities that we feel like are very important, and they might be very important, but don't ever rule anybody out. I mean, within reason, you know. Because if I had been real hard and fast about my rules, then I would have never even considered him at the time when it looked like, wow, there might be something going on, and he would have never considered me. And I got rejected by men because I have an autistic son. When they found out that, you know, it was like, no, sorry, don't want somebody, you know, dealing with a disabled son. So anyway, about another month or two passed, and I was in Target in California, of course, Orange County, looking for kosher bread. I didn't find any, but I called up old Dave. I just say old Dave, like he felt like an old friend of mine. And I said, hey, what's happening? He said, oh, I'm so happy to hear from you. My son just got engaged, and there are throngs and throngs of people. And we talked for over an hour, and he just seemed particularly happy to hear from me. And I said, well, you know, I thought I was going to be congratulating you on getting engaged. I thought it was imminent. He said, no, it didn't work out with that lady. And so over the course of about the next 6 weeks, I convinced him to come to California so we could meet. And we met on July 23rd, 2009, and we got engaged December 23rd, 2009 in New York. I brought my son with me, and it was during his winter break from school, and then we got married in the following June. And we have a son together. He was born a year and a half later, and thank God he is perfectly healthy. So it wasn't easy getting there at all. And I want to give all of you chizuk, like my husband gave to me, even when he told me, you know, you're not the zvug for me, you're not the match, that your life can change in an instant. Sometimes we see how it can go from good to bad, but it can go from bad or, let's say, less preferable in an instant too, and you never know where it's going to come from. And I would go to lectures, usually in LA, and I would say, you know, I want to get married. Don't I want the things that Hashem wants? It's not like I'm saying, hey, I want to rob a bank, you know, and get $20 million. I mean, I know Hashem doesn't want me to do that, but I just want to get married. I want to have a good marriage. And I wasn't married to a bad guy, like, not at all. But it didn't work for other reasons. And I wanted another child too. And I don't know. I was talking about this with my husband last night that I'm so grateful. We're so grateful that we found each other. But I had to put myself out there, and I had to take risks. And lots of times things didn't work out. And I don't know. You just never know, you know, where that road is going to lead and what's going to happen. So, now, does anybody have any questions? I don't know what you think about what I said, if it's helpful, not helpful. Go ahead,
I don't have a question, Faith. I really liked what you said. It helped me to
Thanks.
hear it.
Good. Good. And know that you're not alone. You're not alone. You feel lonely. It's hard being a single Orthodox woman, especially. I think especially in a big community, but also in a smaller community. Like, I don't know, and maybe because of my son's autism, I didn't get invited to the few homes where I could have been, you know, in Orange County. It's like, you know, I was spending a lot of time doing services with him, and it was hard. It was hard. I remember before we got services, I didn't know when I was going to be able to go to bed at night because he just didn't go to bed. So, and I just started a new job, and it was tough.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
We have Johanna Farber here. Farber.
I'm not making a speech. The hour is late and it's not time for it, but I will just introduce myself. Sahaba Farman. I'm the Associate Director of High Lifelines Crisis Intervention Trauma and Bereavement Department. For the last 20 years, I've been focused only on crisis, trauma, and tragedy. So really, this event is the first collaboration between my department, Project High, and my extended family. Because my extended family's focus is on children who are living with one parent. And so far, a lot of their focus has been divorce. But I kind of came and opened my big mouth and said, you know what, but there are a lot of families living with one parent because of death. And in my department, I dealt with too many families where a parent, a spouse died. And I'm very involved in the crisis situation and getting them through that initial crisis stage. But hopefully together with my extended family, we will now be able to offer the same services that the divorced families are benefiting from, the bereavement families will now benefit from also. So I really just wanted to come tonight to introduce myself. I will stick around if there is anybody here from a bereavement situation. I'd be happy to answer any questions. But going forward, Emerit Hashem, you know, if you know people, you know, who are single parents because of a bereavement situation, hopefully, like I said, the children and the parents will be able to now benefit from the same types of services that you have.
Thank you so much. And next door, we have anybody that's interested in nutrition and a business, to open up your own business. If you need any extra cash, we have Mrs. Newhoff here from Airborne. Arbonne. Thank you.
And the truth is that Reverend Sippy Vigler is, for over 10 years, a very dear friend, my next door neighbor. If you talk about chinuch, she's actually been my last 4 children's preschool mora. And when she shared with me the idea of doing this here, I had no idea what the actual topic was. How interesting to me it was when I started to hear the discussion about how we can become a better parent, how we can become a better mother, and how it all boils down to being a better you. If someone knows what Arbonne is, they really generally think of it as a lipstick, a great weight loss program, fabulous chemical-free products. But not to sound cliche, my journey with Arbonne the past year has been learning that it's way more than the products in the catalog. And I know that that was shared before. The way we eliminate toxins, some are built into your life and some are impossible to eliminate. But in order to really eliminate toxins, you need to learn to balance your life with positivity, with friends who can be there to root for you, who can cheer you on, and seek out those kind of people in your life. What I was unaware of until I joined this company was that there are products that are going to cause toxicity in our bodies, and that is going to have a major effect on the way we behave, on the way we feel, and the things that we do. And it sounded so odd to me. What do you mean? If I eat this piece of cake, it's going to make me feel better? How could you tell me that in the long run, it's going to make me feel lousy? And my sister, who has been involved with this company for more than I am, gently prodded me to try. And I have to tell you that over the next 2 weeks of my being slowly drawn in, a year ago, 2 weeks, the first 2 weeks, I was amazed to see that it is so true. The foods we eat, the air we breathe, the people we surround ourselves with can either be toxic, or if we eliminate them, can allow us to breathe better, to focus better, and to just live better lives. What does this have to do with all the products you see on the table? I'm going to start with the nutrition program just to explain what it's all about. And much of what I'm going to share with you is going to be based on a talk I heard from Dr. Tanda Cook, who is a naturopathic doctor. She practices a little bit differently than the general practitioner that we use, because general practitioners will look at what your symptoms are and give you a cure. Okay, come to the doctor, pro culture, okay, it's positive, antibiotics, go home. A naturopathic doctor is going to try to get to the root of the problem. They're going to come and focus on what's causing the issues that you are suffering from. Why do you have migraines? Why do you have stomach aches? Why are you dealing with back pain? Why do you have weight gain that you cannot get rid of? And they are going to focus on the root causes. And what Dr. Tanda Cook, amongst many, many other scientists have discovered, is that many foods that we eat wreak havoc on our body. Today, the cup of milk that we drink is not the same cup of milk that we hear our grandmothers talking about. The piece of chicken that we eat is not the same piece of chicken that our great-grandparents ate. The foods we eat today are loaded with toxins, with preservatives, with chemicals that have been linked to all different illnesses in every range you could imagine. And so our bodies don't know what to do with all that. And what happens is that the toxins build up, they get to a point where the body cannot eliminate them, and I'm going to skip a lot of the details, but just give you a general sense. And what the body is going to do in order to protect the vital organs is it's going to create what's called adipose tissue, which is kind of like bubble wrap around the toxins to protect our vital organs. And so what's really happening, according to naturopathic doctors, according to the scientists at Arbonne, and according to many people who have tried this and seen it happen, is that really what fat is all about is it's about a buildup of toxins in the body. That extra 10 pounds that you can't lose, that 40 pounds after a month of Simplus and Yantif, and it's basically toxins that are wrapped in fat tissue that just grow in the body and go to the stomach area, to the thighs, and to all different parts of the body. So what in the world can we do to get rid of these toxins? We talk about, in medical school, they talk about the concept of the bathtub. If the water's coming in at a normal pace, it'll drain. If the hair is not clogging up the drain, the water will come in and go out. But what happens if the water is coming in so fast, if you have 4 faucets on all at once and the drain is clear, or you have a drain clogged with hair, the water's going to come in and overflow and spill over and make a mess. That is what happens in our bodies. The food is coming in, sometimes at a very rapid pace, sometimes at a point where our liver is so overfilled with toxins that it just cannot do anything anymore with it. And so what happens is the fat grows, builds up. What we like to call our 30-day to healthy living is a pause, a reset button. It's a way, it's like self-cleaning your oven. It's like that cleaning at the dentist. It's taking 30 days and eliminating foods that are inflammatory, eliminating foods that are allergens, eliminating foods that wreak havoc on the body, and just eating clean. You're pressing reset. for 30 days. And we're eliminating anything that can cause the body to suffer. After those 30 days, you can maintain this lifestyle if you feel that you'd like to.
Question.
Yeah.
Has this been, how do children react when you introduce the toxin-free food? Do they have
We have amazing recipes. Most children don't know this.
so,
I mean, unless you're not giving them the dipsy doodles for snack, which most of us do until they themselves discover that they like the other products. We don't sell products. A lot of it we make. A lot of it we use some of our ingredients to create that for them. We have delicious bars that we make. But it's not forever. It's 30 days that we pause, reset, eliminate, and then we go to what's called reintroducing things. Maybe it's dairy that I didn't even realize was giving me such stomach pain. Maybe it's the gluten that's making me have headaches. Maybe it's the coffee that was the cause of the migraines. And you start to really learn about yourself. You start to really learn about what your triggers are and what it is that is wreaking havoc on your body. I'm not going to go through all the products, but we have many products that help to, like Dr. Tanda Cooks, when she tells her patients to do this 30-day, they feel like the rug has been pulled from them. She calls our 30 Days to Healthy Living the rug. It's giving you all the tools. It's giving you 1 to 2 meals. It's giving you a snack if you like. It's giving you your replacement for coffee. It's giving you what you need in order to get through the month and get through it in a way that you feel amazing. And I have to just tell you for a second, personally, I thought this was going to be the hardest program I have ever done. I have gone to nutritionist after nutritionist. I think I own every book that there is out there, from Suzanne Summers to Atkins and everything in between. Nothing worked. I have a long way to go. My last 3 pregnancies were, Baruch Hashem, very close. My last one, I was on bed rest most of it. And I still have a lot to lose, but this works. And you know why? Because you're not dieting. Because you're not eating that zigonlag at the Kiddush because you're on dieting. Your nutritionist is going to kill you if you don't eat, if you come in and tell that you ate it. You're not eating that because you have discovered that the combination of all that sugar and margarine and flour wreaks such havoc on your body, and you know how you feel when you don't eat it, that you don't even have an interest in it. I could not believe, when I was on this for 3 months, I walked into a simcha and I walked around and all of a sudden I realized, oh my gosh, none of this tempts me. It's a very weird awakening when you start to see how the foods that you used to love are no longer an issue for you. I want to just talk for 2 minutes about the business, just in case anyone is interested. Today we have 2 types of business models. 2 types of people. We have people who work many hours and get paid by the hour. You're a speech therapist, you're a clerk, you work an hour, you get paid for an hour. You work 2 hours, you get paid for 2 hours. You have a 40-hour work week, you get paid for 40 hours. Or you have people who have a job, 9 to 5, or they could be 9 to 7, or they could be whatever their hours are, and they're working their tail off so their boss can make a lot of money. At Arbonne, we have a concept that I've learned about, which is incredible, called residual income. And residual income is basically, you put in a lot of hours at the beginning. Don't calculate what your hours are, because you might be making a penny on the dollar. But eventually, it pays off. And when you're sleeping, you're making money. When you're vacationing, you're making money. And when you're, sitting and making supper, you're making money as well. And I have friends who are speech therapists, who are lawyers, who were actresses I've met over the year, who built this company, built this business for themselves on the side. It is a business that really, really focuses on you as a mother, you as a person, and there is no boss. There is no clock that you're punching. There is no one over you. You work it yourself, but with a whole team that is there to help you. And so that is That is what people love about this. The two questions that I was asked, which really got me thinking and made me join, was if something were to happen to your main source of income due to a cutback or job loss, how long could you get by on your current savings? And the second question was, where will you be in 5 years if you continue doing what you are currently doing financially? There are people who do this business for an extra $500 a month. There are people who are making $2,000 a month. I have a friend who's making $12,000 a month after 4 years. Not everybody is like that, but the potential is there. So there are people who join Arbonne because they love that the products are clean, that they're paraben-free, they're safe. They don't have all those harmful chemicals that are linked to certain illnesses. There are people who are drawn to Arbonne because of the business model and incredible financial opportunities. There are people who are drawn to Arbonne for the team that they're part of. They're inspired by, and they love the network that they become a part of. And there are people who are drawn to the personal growth that Arbonne insists upon and pushes you to do day after day. So we change lives one at a time, our own, our children, and our families. If anyone has questions either about the business or about the products, you can ask me about the weight loss program if you have friends who would be interested in any part of it. You can take my card. And I think the raffle for Miami Soul was not even noticed. Oh well.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for listening.